So we'll start by meditating. We'll start by just reviewing the posture. We went over the 7-point Vairocana posture in detail last time. So I'll just mention each of the points again. Try to be mindful of them and situate your body in, somewhat that way. I'm going to spend a minute or two just scanning through the body, checking the different points of the posture and, conscientiously relaxing, which means like becoming aware of any tension and so forth. So as you start to generally get comfortable wherever you're seated, meditation posture, then remember the first point is the legs and the cushion, kind of with the legs, either folded in full lotus posture or half lotus posture, or just normal cross-legged position. Or if you're sitting in a chair, then be mindful that your feet are planted on the floor comfortably, and you have proper support under, especially in the back, under your coccyx, your seating bones supported. So that's the first point. Then the second point of the posture is the torso, and especially the spine being erect and straight, so not slouching forward or not falling back or falling side to side. So again, it can help to rock side to side and then rock front to back a little bit, and find the place where you're kind of can sit very erect, but without, and you're balanced, right? So you don't have to clench any muscles. But the gravity just naturally holds you in a very straight position. Then the third point of the posture is the shoulders. Kind of see that they're not, concave, kind of crowding in your chest, but broad and open and level. And then let them just hang down from your spine, your collar, in a relaxed way. So there's the legs, the torso and back, shoulders, the first 3 points. And the fourth is the hands and the lap, the right hand on top of the left, and then the thumbs touching, tips of the thumbs touching, and then rest that, so that mudra, sort of resting in front of your navel. So the tips of the thumbs touching should be just in the center of your body, just below your navel, resting on your feet or in your lap, whichever. And then check that there's a little space between the sides of your arms and your ribs, your rib cage on the sides, to let some air pass through. So that all is the fourth. And the fifth point is the eyes. So, turn your gaze downward at about a 45-degree angle towards the ground, and then pull your focus of vision sort of back and let things just be unfocused. So let your gaze rest unfocused space. So your eyebrows should be about, if you relax eyebrows, they should be about half closed and half a little bit open, letting some light in. And then the sixth is the head. So it's good to tilt your head slightly forward. So you tuck the chin a little bit, and then naturally the back of the neck will elongate just slightly. So that helps to keep the head balanced on top of our necks. And keep the gaze down. And then, so that's, what is it? The fourth was the hands. The fifth point was the eyes. The sixth point is the head. And then the seventh point is the mouth and the tongue. So let your lips and teeth just rest in whatever position is natural. And gently touch the tip of your tongue against the roof of the mouth, just behind your front teeth. So the gums just behind your front teeth. So sometimes here it's good to take a few deep breaths just to see that your lungs are fully open. Hopefully you're breathing from your abdomen and not just shallow breathing from your chest. It can help also to loosen your, if you don't, while you're meditating, you don't want to have a tight belt, a belt that's constricting tightly around your waist because it'll constrict your breathing, right? So you want your breathing to be able to, your breath to be able to flow very naturally. So it can help to loosen your belt and, um, yeah, take a few deep breaths, but then just breathe naturally. So then as part of checking through the points of the posture, it's also good just to briefly scan through the one's body, as I think I've mentioned before. So that means here we basically whatever part of our body we direct our attention towards, we have more vivid experience of the sensations in that part of the body. You'll find. So scanning through the body here means first we bring our attention to the crown of our head, um, and the scalp, for the front of the head, sides, and just check to see how if we feel comfortable there, basically. Especially being trying to be attuned to any muscles that are clenched, like we're holding some kind of stress or tension, and then relax those if there's any discomfort in any part of the body. So as we breathe in, we can imagine inhaling a purifying, energizing, healing white light into, especially into those parts of the body that might be uncomfortable. And as we exhale, we can imagine any tension, tightness, or discomfort flows out in the form of like dark smoke into the ground, down out of our body into the ground, where it just mixes with the earth. So that, like, we could kind of practice that, beginning with the crown of the head and then gradually touching each part of our body with our attention as we go down. So then bring the attention to the brows, the area around the eyes. Very often have a lot of tension, the back of the head, the back of the neck, and the cheeks, the jaw, the chin, the front of the neck. So like that, just scan through your body all the way down to the soles of your feet. So take a couple minutes and do that. This really helps to kind of relax and become very comfortable in our sitting posture. Okay, so then now that we're comfortable in our sitting posture, then let's turn our attention to the breath, and we'll practice placement meditation for a few minutes. Mm. So as I said, I think last time, there are different ways to watch the breath, to focus on our breath. You can watch the sensations at the tip of the nostrils. So and when we're doing breathing meditation, it's usually called, or we're taking sensations of breathing as the object of meditation. I'm just trying to watch those without getting caught up in any discursive thought, without judgment or thinking about the breath, in any significant way. Just simply observing the sensations of breathing. So when we're doing that, we breathe naturally, right? We're not trying to hold, take big breaths and hold them, or take short breaths or anything. We just breathe naturally. So there's 3 different ways to watch the sensations of breath. One is at the tip of the nostrils, to focus our attention here at the tip of the nostrils and just watch the sensations there. Another is to focus on the abdomen, the rising and falling of our abdomen. Keep our attention down there at the abdomen. And then the third way, which I'll recommend we try now, is to follow the breath. So as we inhale, observe as the breath goes down, through the nose and mouth, through the esophagus, down into the chest, and then into the abdomen, filling the lungs. And then as we exhale, then as the abdomen sinks, chest contracts, and the air flows out through the esophagus and then back out through our nose and mouth. So we follow the breath down, up like that. Yeah. So try to generate the intention now for the next, say, 3 minutes. I'll simply observe. So think to oneself for the next few minutes. I'll try to the best of my ability, focus my attention on the breath, simply observing the sensations of breathing. So that's the object of meditation. And then especially be mindful that if one sees other thoughts arising about things that might have happened in the past, or things that might happen in the future, or other things that are going on in the present, that will recognize those in this context as a distraction, distracting our attention away from the chosen object of meditation. And so we'll try to let go of thinking about those, giving our attention to other things. And then when we see our mind become distracted like that, we'll try to recognize that as soon as possible and bring our attention back to just simply observing the breath. Right? So we'll try to maintain a continuity, continually observing the breath for as long as possible. Even 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds would be excellent. But even 2 or 3 seconds is quite good. But if we can, then we can 1 minute, 2 minutes. So practice like that, observing the breath for 3 minutes. Mm. Okay. Relax your attention there. So, yeah, everything that we've just done now is basically review, things we discussed before. So since I know last session there wasn't much time for questions. If there's any questions about any of that or anything we've done up to now, or anything hopefully you've been doing some meditation at home last few weeks. I can try to answer some questions now before I introduce the new things to learn today.
Mary, you have a question?
Yes. I've been meditating for 8 minutes, and in the beginning of my meditation, I'm like scattered and I'm all over the place. And then when I get to like towards the end of the meditation, I'm actually able to hold the meditation object like more clearly. Like, should I increase the amount of time I'm meditating? Because it seems like I need, the first at least 6 minutes just to calm down. So
Yeah, that's totally normal. What time of day are you meditating?
usually towards the evening, like around 7 or 8.
And how long have you been doing for 8 minutes?
Um, maybe like 2 weeks.
Okay. And are you counting 8 minutes from the time you sit down, or from the time you kind of feel settled and then kind of feel like you actually start meditating?
For the time I start actually meditating, I have a timer.
Okay. Yeah, I would. If you still feel like the quality of meditation is still quite good after 8 minutes, then yeah, try extending it to, I don't know, 15 minutes and see how it goes. Yeah, it's all, I mean, the duration of the meditation session, I mean, it's somehow, in some ways it varies the type of meditation you're doing. Like if you're really trying to generate single pointed concentration, like the main object, that's the main objective, then it's recommended to keep the meditation sessions very short, because you want, and I think it says in the text, like up to 18 sessions per day. So if you imagine, all you're doing is meditating, like you're in a retreat and you have about 16 hours a day, dividing that up into 18 sessions, it would still be like 40-minute sessions. So, or 45-minute sessions. So, but the main thing is that the main danger with extending the sessions too long is that you're tired by the end of the session. And so as you get more and more tired at the beginning, when we're new to meditation, it takes a lot of energy to focus our attention on something. So if we push it too long, then we get tired, and as we get more tired, we can't focus as well. So the quality of attention declines. And then we can get into the habit of sitting, kind of quote unquote meditating, but our mind is just wandering all over the place. Like we don't have a good quality, we don't have good focus, and we don't have good clarity of mind. So, so that's what you want to prevent, just sitting, kind of trying to meditate, but because you're pushing yourself to sit too long, then we get tired and we have a very low quality of attention. So we want to make sure that when we stop at the end of the session, we still have a good quality of attention, which it sounds like you do, right? So then you can practice with extending that longer. Another reason for not doing the sessions too long is because we want to end on a good note so that we want to do it again, right? It's like if we push ourselves too long and we're miserable by the end of it, then we won't want to do it again also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Are you all comfortable? Okay, please.
Questions about the readings we did for this week. Should I ask those now or at the end of the session?
Yes, now is a good time.
Okay, so in the Simple Meditations article, Lama Zopa Rinpoche makes reference to Compassion Buddha, Medicine Buddha, Tara, and mantras. I have no real experience with that except what I Google. What is it can you guide me to what I want to explore in that regard?
Sure. Do you have a pen and paper nearby?
Yeah.
You should. So compassion Buddha is also known as Chenrezig. Chenrezig. Maybe Urs, could you type in the chat? Chenrezig and Avalokiteshvara. Chenrezig's the Tibetan name for the Buddha of compassion, and Avalokiteshvara is the Sanskrit name. So if you just do a search for like FPMT Avalokiteshvara meditation, then it'll come up with different kind of guided meditations, or they're called sadhanas. I mean, well, there's kind of meditation. What do you say? Like manuals for how to meditate on different deities. Which there's very short versions, very long versions. So a lot of those are translated into English, and you can find. For us, it's probably best. The very good ones that are translated by Lama Zopa Rinpoche with some commentary that make it very in FPMT. It's one thing FPMT is very good at, is translating and publishing these kind of meditation manuals on different deities with very clear, easy to follow instructions. So if you look at a couple of those, you get the layout is all quite similar, and you get some idea for how to meditate on a deity like that. Lama Zopa Rinpoche's instruction there in that simple meditations article is kind of the most simple form, and he kind of assumes that you already are familiar with that. If we get time later in this class today, if not next week or one of the other sessions, we'll definitely try it. We'll do some of the meditations that Rinpoche described there, including one of those on a deity. What was the other one there? I think you mentioned Tara is a female in
Right.
Buddha and a female aspect.
Right.
Mhm.
Tara and medicine Buddha, and also mentioned repeating mantras.
Yeah, each Buddha has different mantras associated with it, right? So like Om Mani Padme Hum is the mantra of the Buddha of compassion. Om Tare Tutare Ture Swaha is the main mantra of Tara. But there's also other mantras. Each of them have some short, middle length, very long mantras associated with them. And then Medicine Buddha there's a specific mantra associated with Medicine Buddha as well. So again, if you look those up, you can find. I mean, it's not. Yeah, if you Google, you can find information. But the problem with Google is you just find all kinds of information, and it can be kind of confusing. So if you just add FPMT to stuff, then you'll come up with all kind of pretty coherent, pretty not contradictory things, and you can start to get an idea. And then if you want to look for other sources, there's a lot of sources of information about those. We can maybe later in the course, maybe we can try doing some deity meditation, and then we can speak more about those different deities. But in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a vast pantheon of all different kinds of enlightened beings. So that's kind of one thing that's a little different about the Sanskrit tradition of Buddhism, is there's belief in enlightened beings appearing in all these many different kinds of forms in order to benefit sort of sentient beings. In the Pali tradition, they still believe, like, for example, in this fortunate eon, 1,000 Buddhas will appear on earth and teach the Dharma. Shakyamuni Buddha is not the only one, but you don't see so many description of Buddhas and all these different numbers of heads and arms and different colors and so forth. Okay, other questions? Okay. There's a couple small points I wanted to make. Oh, well, a couple small points I wanted to make before I go on to the main other stuff to add. One is because Mary and Eve are asking a lot of questions, but the rest of you are not asking many questions. So I was thinking maybe, I know, maybe, well, I know I grew up like in a Roman Catholic tradition, and I was kind of thinking, you know, when you go to church and the priest is giving a homily, like there's no opportunity to ask questions. So maybe you are thinking, oh, this is that kind of thing. Like there's a Buddhist monk and he's giving a talk and you just listen and take from it what you can. So the Buddhist tradition is very different like that. Like the questions are highly encouraged, right? The audience, I mean, it depends on the setting, right? Like when His Holiness Dalai Lama is giving a talk online, or whether, you know, at a big venue where there's 100,000 people, it's not really practical to open up the floor to questions, right? But in a setting like this, where there's just a handful of people, and there's a teacher there, like it's more like a class in the monastery, like in the monasteries. Like when I go to class with my teachers in the monastery, usually if we have 45 minutes, the teacher will speak for about 30 minutes, and then about 15 minutes, we can ask questions. And actually anytime during the talk, if we have a really pressing and relevant in this form, like it's, yeah, it's questions are welcome because, well, one, because like I'm not clairvoyant, I can't see what's in your mind. So if there's doubts that you have, I don't know that, right? And I want to be able to clear up your doubts, right? So it's helpful for me to just hear what I've said is not clear, or you have questions about, or it seems contradictory. Yeah, so it can help clear up, you know, different points. And then also it shows you kind of your understanding what I'm saying. So it helps me. It's good to get some feedback that, okay, that this is, you know, the way I'm explaining it is kind of somewhat clear and relevant to your concerns. But also, it's good because, you know, when one of us has a question, there's probably, you know, at least several others that also have the same question. So it can help.
Venerable Lexok, are you there? I think he's breaking off. Is he frozen for you as well? Okay.
What? Oh, my Wi-Fi signal is really weak.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
you're cutting out sometimes.
Oh, really? Huh. Let me check. Yeah, Wi-Fi. Huh. Yeah, the signal's just gone way down.
Yeah.
Maybe we should turn our video off, then it'll probably be okay, I imagine. It's getting stronger now. Okay, good. Okay,
Okay.
let me know if you can't hear me now. But now, yeah, it still looks really weak. Here, I'll cut my video off, and then the sound will probably be better because the video takes up a lot of bandwidth, right? Oh yeah, so this verse, the famous verse by the Shakyamuni Buddha said, just as a goldsmith analyzes gold by cutting, rubbing, and burning, it was actually, oh, monks and scholars, just as a goldsmith analyzes gold by cutting, rubbing, and burning, so too should you analyze my teachings. Don't accept them merely out of faith in me. So it's important, you know, that we approach Buddha's teachings with a very skeptical mind, and we analyze and think, you know, question everything. And this really becomes a big part of, especially analytical meditation. Analytical meditation is not a process where, you know, someone says something like, you know, samsara is in the nature of suffering, like your life is in the nature of suffering, and we just repeat that to ourselves and, you know, fully accept that without analyzing it, right? Rather, we should push back against everything a little bit and ask, well, is that true or not true? What are the reasons why it's not true first, and then what are the reasons why it might be true, and then come to our own conclusion, right? So and we should do so. Yeah, so there's a little bit of a danger, especially if we have a lot of enthusiasm for Buddhism or, you know, any other religion at first, that we just accept everything, you know, blindly, and then later down the road, we kind of realize we've gotten into a whole set of beliefs which we've never really thought about carefully, and which we're actually not comfortable with a lot of. So it's much better right from the beginning to question everything very thoroughly. And then if we see that our own conclusions are in accord with what, what's being taught more and more, then we know that's the right path for us. If we find that, but to question sincerely, we have to be willing to accept the possibility that this isn't the right path for us, right? Which means we have to really question seriously, and then when we find disagreement, to ask about it. Give the tradition an opportunity to explain where it looks like there's things that aren't right to us, and then if we find satisfactory explanations, then carry on. And if we really don't find satisfactory explanations, then maybe we need to look elsewhere for teachings that are helpful for us, right? Everyone's different. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. It's good to question. And then the second thing is, just lost it. Oh, so again, also everything we've done so far is basically relevant in a secular sphere, right? So meditation is like a human practice, like walking or eating or exercising or sleeping. It's something we can do to work with our mind, and it's not necessarily like a religious activity, or not necessarily a Buddhist activity. So everything we've done, at least this module on meditation, is something we can use independently of any religious system, Christianity, Hinduism, any other belief system. So it's good to recognize that meditation can be seen as a secular activity. Okay, so those are just the two side notes. Okay, I think my Wi-Fi is looks like full power now, so I'll try to turn my video on again. Okay, so then what I wanted to add in actually this other aspect. These are the two tools that we use in meditation. So we can, when we're meditating on the breath, I was asking you to focus your attention on your breath. I mean, how did that go? Could you keep your attention focused on your breath for a few seconds without your mind wandering off? Good. See some heads nodding. And then, more importantly, when you found yourself thinking about something else, could you catch it before long, or would you rather be thinking about making a whole 20 point grocery list and then realize, oh, I'm thinking about the groceries or something like that? That happens sometimes. You can even go most of the session thinking about something else, and then only realize at the end, like, oh, I was supposed to be meditating on this. Depends how fascinating the thing we're thinking about is sometimes, and depends on the degree of our self-awareness, basically. So we'll see. At the beginning, when we're meditating, we're much more likely to go, spend more time off the object, right? So whenever we're meditating, we have an object of meditation. So in what we're doing just now, the object was the breath, our sensation of the breathing. So, so when we start to meditate, it's for most people, they'll find they spend more time actually their mind wandering, and their attention kind of wandering to other things than they actually spend on the breath. So it's very, and it takes us, at the beginning when we're meditating, it takes us longer to recognize that our mind is wandering to something else, right? So we want to try to become more and more self-aware so that we see more and more quickly that our attention is wandering off to something else. And gradually we become sensitive such that we see, even before our mind wanders off, that it's kind of going in that direction and we're about to lose the object, and then make some adjustment so that we don't. So, so basically you can think of kind of two main tools that we use while we're meditating. So one is called mindfulness, and the other is called introspection. So these are kind of English translations into English for well, I'll stick with the Tibetan terms because I'm more familiar than those than Sanskrit. Um, there's a Tibetan term, Drampa. You don't need to know the Tibetan, but I'm just kind of saying it for myself. They let you know. Drampa. So Drampa can mean to remember, but here it means more like we're remembering the object of meditation, not in the sense of remembering something that happened in the past, but in the sense of we're holding that object with our mind and not forgetting it. Like if forgetting meant like we stop being aware of it. Here, Drampa means that we're continually aware. So when we say there's this aspect of mind called mindfulness, again, also the word mindfulness in English is used for a whole broad category of types of meditation. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a specific skill, a specific kind of thing we do with our mind, where we're remaining aware, we're remaining continually aware of our object of meditation. Right? So we're maintaining a continuity of awareness or a stream of unbroken awareness of the object of meditation, whatever that is. So here, like when we're meditating on the breath is the object of meditation, and we focus our attention on it, kind of like if you had a flashlight in your hand and you're walking down a path, you want to keep the beam of the flashlight focused on the path in front of you continually so that you see any snakes or roots and don't trip over them. So like that. So if the object of meditation or breath is like the path, and then this 80% of our minds, of our attention, basically 80% of our mental energy, we want to focus into this mindfulness, which means directing our attention towards the object of meditation and maintaining an unbroken stream of awareness of the object of meditation. So another analogy for mindfulness is like is like a rope that say like a rope that keeps an animal tied to a stake. So say we have a dog and we're in a big park and there are a lot of people playing and we're tired of holding the leash in our hand, then we tie the leash or a rope of a dog to a stake, and so it's that rope that keeps the dog tied to the stake, keeps it from moving. So this is the classical analogy in the text is an elephant, a chain keeping an elephant tied to a stake, but mostly we don't have elephants that we deal with, so every dog is easier to imagine. But like that, like here, the stake is the object of meditation, right? And the animal that wants to just roam around freely is our own mind, right? Our mind is, because we have a kind of inertia. We're not used to keeping our mind usually focused on one thing in the way we do in meditation. It has sort of inertia to just jump around to different things randomly. So the mindfulness is like 80% of our mental energy we're using to hold our attention to an object of meditation. So that's that. So then what do we do with the other 20% of our mental energy? So this is where we try to generate introspection, or meta awareness is the translation that Thupten Jinpa and some others prefer, but Shishin in Tibetan. But so it's like, imagine this 20% of our mental energy, it's like a corner of our mind is turned back and we're looking at our own mind, right? So we try to observe inwardly our own process of meditation, and observe, basically, it's one analogy it's given to describe introspection is like a sentry, like a guard making rounds around like like a military encampment to make sure there's no intruders coming in, and if there are intruders, to identify very quickly and alert the others and then do something about it. Or like like a security guard at a store or an apartment building, keeping guard for things that thoughts, memories of the past, plans for the future, paying attention to other sensations and so forth that disturb the continuity of our meditation, right? So so this meta awareness is focused inward at our own mind, our own process of meditation, and being aware of, are we leaning more towards, are we feeling lethargic and the mind's becoming too dull? Or are we very excited and there's a danger our minds can jump off the object to some other object of our fascination? Or do we have a balanced kind of awareness of the object of meditation? So we don't want to get caught up too much and thinking about all those things. So we just want to sort of gently use a corner of our mind to be aware of our own process. So again, those are called mindfulness. It's like 80% of our attention. We're focused on the object meditation and trying to maintain an unbroken continuity of awareness of the object of meditation. And then with about 20% of our mind, we generate introspection, or observing our own process of meditation. And it's introspection which is responsible for especially being aware if our attention wanders off to something else. It's introspection's job to kind of catch that and then think, okay, I'll let go. I won't think about that for now. I can think about it later. And I'll bring my attention back to the object of meditation. Okay, so let's try just meditating on the breath again and try to cultivate those two things, mindfulness and introspection. Try to kind of divide up your mental energy that way. So for maybe 3 minutes, focus on the breath. Trying to cultivate mindfulness and introspection. Okay, you can relax your attention there. Mm. Okay, so try to use, that's something we use, those two things, mindfulness and introspection. We should, it's kind of like the posture. It's something every meditation session, we try to use those two, whether we're doing placement meditation, as we have been so far, or whether we're doing analytical meditation. Okay, so now I want to introduce more about analytical meditation. So again, the difference between, maybe I should also just review also, a way to define meditation is basically when we use the mental consciousness as opposed to the sense consciousness to intentionally focus our attention on an object of meditation with a positive motivation, and we do so repeatedly such that we familiarize ourselves with that state of awareness, something like that. And then we can, there's many different ways to divide up meditation, but the most common and basic way is into these two kinds: placement meditation and analytical meditation. So in placement meditation, which, with the way the word mindfulness meditation is used in common parlance, it's usually referring basically to kinds of placement meditation for the most part. But so placement meditation is where we simply focus our attention on an object and try to keep our attention focused on that object without distraction and without engaging in any process of thought, like in any process of analysis or, imagination or aspiring to do something or any further dynamic, mental process than just keeping our attention focused on an object of meditation, right? So analytical meditation is, it involves elements of course, we have an object of meditation and we're trying to keep our attention focused, but we're also doing other stuff at the same time. We're thinking about a question, we're trying to generate a certain attitude, trying to generate a visualization, or remember, different things, and so forth. So in that article by Geshe Jampa Techo, he gave very extensive, elaborate description about many different aspects of analytical meditation. And there, Geshe Jampa Techo, I should say Khensa Rinpoche Jampa Techo, because he was a former abbot of Sarajay Monastery actually. But he mentioned that, he thought, he said that like visualization and I think generating a certain attitude are not analytical meditations, but oftentimes the explanation I've heard from other sources is that they are aspects of analytical meditation. Anyway, it's not really important one way or the other. But within analytical meditation, so there's many different types. The first point I want to make. So the main type of analytical meditation is where we actually analyze, right? Where we ask questions. Is this true or not? And what are the reasons for this? What are the reasons against this? And so we do this kind of contemplation, thinking we think about something in meditation. But another types of analytical meditation, which we'll do now actually, is try to generate a certain attitude. Like we try to generate loving kindness. We try to generate compassion. We try to generate an attitude of equanimity towards other sentient beings, and so forth. So that kind of process is not so much one of questioning. If we're trying to generate compassion for a person, an individual person, or a group of people, we're not asking a lot of questions about, are they a good person? Are they a bad person? Do I like them? Do I not like them? Rather, we're just trying to generate a certain attitude. May they be an intention? May they be free from suffering, right? And trying to generate that intention so that it has enough strength that we feel something, right? we feel some kind of transformation in our mind. And that should typically is accompanied by a different kind of feeling in our body. I mean, if we have real strong compassion, maybe the hairs of our hairs might stand on end, or we might even tear up, right? So when we really move our mind in a powerful way, then there should be some, also some physical symptoms of that. Not symptoms. Symptoms is more like a symptom of an illness, right? I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for, but I think you get the point. So we should actually feel something strongly and sincerely, then, it shows in different ways. So, okay, so one kind of analytical meditation is where we try to generate a certain kind of attitude. And then another kind of analytical meditation is where we, prayer, like we pray. Praying is a kind of meditation, praying that such and such come to be. That's also a kind of meditation. Another kind is where we just remember things. So as I think Geshe Jambatechu describes it as a glance meditation. So where we think over, different points and different kind of truths, like in the Lamrim, the graduated path to enlightenment. There's many different kind of things we try to come to a realization of. For example, that this opportunity we have as being a human being now and having met a spiritual path, Buddha's teaching is incredibly fortunate, but it won't last long. Then eventually we're going to die. So we need to make our best effort to make full use of this opportunity now. And then after we die, it's possible it will take rebirth in the lower realms. How do we avoid that? We, come to an understanding of the karma and the law of cause and effect. So there's these different, many different kind of understandings that we can, if we think about them all, very briefly in a certain kind of order, it has a certain powerful effect on the mind. So that's called a kind of glance meditation. And there's different kinds of that. So that's another kind of meditation. And then finally, another kind is where we try to generate a visualized image. So this is sort of what Eve was referring to in Lama Zopa Rinpoche's article. So we can, especially in the Sanskrit tradition of Buddhism, there's a lot of visualization of different deities, different Buddhas, and then, making offerings to them, requesting blessings, and then imagining them, bestowing blessings upon us, and imagining ourselves being purified or endowed with compassion and power and, wisdom and so forth. So there's a kind of imagination, visualization and imagination of a certain process happening, which can have a very powerful effect on the mind. So that's also a kind of analytical meditation. So analytical meditation is a label that then applies to this very broad type of different types of meditation. So yeah. So here, I think a good place to start, and maybe I should say, I was listening to a podcast by these two guys that are associated with Sechenling, Steve, I forget his name. They have a podcast, Steve. Oh, I don't remember his name. Anyway, he's like a kind of techie guy. I think he runs a sound studio somewhere in San Francisco, and the other one's name I totally don't remember, so I won't even try. But it was the other one, the second one who runs the podcast together with them. He has a really good. I'll try to find it before next session and send a link. But he has a sort of introduction to meditation and about himself. He's a very dynamic guy. He's actually led some meditation retreats at Vajrapani Institute. But he was saying he thinks it's a terrible idea to introduce breathing meditation at the beginning of people's learning about meditation, because it's really hard to do. It's really hard to keep our attention focused on the breath. He thinks it's a much better idea to do analytical meditation because it's much easier to focus on, because it's much more interesting in a way, and more dynamic. But I think, I don't know, maybe I'm sort of old fashioned, but definitely in the Pali tradition, you do breathing meditation at the beginning, and yes, it's hard, but you just have to learn, how to do it, right? And not really that, it's not so stoic, but it's also just very simple, right? It's a very simple instruction. and we easily see how much we're distracted. And we just immediately are faced with the challenge of learning how to deal with our distraction, try to let go of distraction and focus our attention on a simple object of meditation. So I find, if we just kind of do the hard work of learning to keep our attention focused on a very simple object, then when we use, that's a kind of power, that ability to focus our attention on an object is a kind of power. And when we use that, then in analytical meditation, it's much more effective, right? The whole process of analytical meditation becomes much more powerful. It has a much more powerful effect on our mind than if we don't really try to generate some decent focus and just start doing analytical meditation. There'll still be a lot of distraction mixed in with the thought process involved and the analytical meditation, and it just doesn't become as powerful. So I think it's good just to kind of go through the hardship of being breathing meditation. So maybe I should say here too, because you might be asking, well, in one meditation session, what do I do? So I think I've said a little bit before, but just to reinforce that is, so first we get comfortable in the posture. Then I think it's good to focus, do some placement meditation for a few minutes. And one good rule of thumb, I think, is if you're focusing on the breath, it's a good object to start with. Do breathing meditation until you can watch 7 rounds of breath without being distracted. So here, there's different levels of distraction, but here, being distracted where you totally lose awareness of the breath. You're totally thinking about something else and not aware of your breath anymore. So even when we're watching our breath, there can still be a little thought going on, under the surface in the back of our mind. For now, we can not worry about that too much. If we can maintain, through 7 rounds of breath, so 1 round being 1 inhalation, 1 exhalation, we can maintain, continual awareness of the breath. Then we have pretty good focus. Our mind is pretty well focused. But be realistic, see where you are. And then, so then we take that, so then from there, then we generate a positive motivation. And then for most of the time, we're doing analytical meditation for the main part of the session, say 10 minutes, and then dedicate at the end. So that's kind of how generally you use both within a session. Okay, so yeah, we don't have that much time left. So I want to let's do a brief analytical meditation on the 4 immeasurables, right? Hopefully some of you heard of the 4 immeasurable thoughts. Basically, there's immeasurable equanimity, measurable compassion, measurable love, and immeasurable joy. And there's a kind of 4 verses of prayer that goes with them. So I'll share my screen now and briefly explain a little bit, and then we'll spend a few minutes trying to do. We'll probably just focus on one of the 4 attitudes. And then we'll see if you have any questions. Okay, so just document. This is general prayers and dedication. And here are the 4 measurable thoughts. So you see, first of all, I just want to point out so there's 4 verses here related to each, 1 verse related to each of the 4 thoughts. And each verse basically has 4 parts. And this pattern repeats through the 4 verses. So first is saying how wonderful it would be. So here, for all sentient beings to abide in equanimity. So here equanimity can mean different things in different places, but here it means that all sentient beings have an equal sense of concern for one another. So can abide in equanimity, free from attachment to friends. So it means like sort of unrealistic expectation of happiness from friends, and anger towards enemies, right? So normally we have an unequal kind of attention where we're biased towards people we like and we're biased against people we don't like. And then we don't really care too much about people we don't know. So we want to try to balance that out in this and pray. And it's like a prayer that all sentient beings generate a kind of balanced affection for one another. So the first is, though, how wonderful it would be for blah, 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 right? Then the second part is, it's slightly stronger. May they actually abide in equanimity. So may that come to be, not just how nice that would be, but may that actually come to pass. So it's slightly stronger. Then the third part is slightly stronger. I myself will cause them to abide in equanimity. So here we take a sense of personal responsibility. May I cause all sentient beings, to abide in equanimity, having equal affection for one another. And then the fourth line is requesting blessings from, typically from, the Buddhas or from our guru. Here I've just made it kind of neutral. So please bless me. Please grant me blessings to be able to do this, right? So you can think you're requesting whatever, you believe in. So each of them then repeat this pattern. So here's relation to equanimity. The second verse here is loving kindness. So it says, how wonderful it would be for all sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have happiness and its causes. I myself will cause them to have these. Please grant my blessings to be able to do this. And then the third verse, how wonderful it would be for all sentient beings to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So this is immeasurable compassion. So why is it called immeasurable? There's several different reasons. One is because the object of our concern is immeasurable, is all sentient beings, right? And all sentient beings are innumerable in number. So the object of our concern, the object of these attitudes is all sentient beings, and they're innumerable. And therefore also the scope of our, in this case, compassion is immeasurable because it extends to all sentient beings. And the merit we create by generating, for example, compassion for all sentient beings is also, incredibly vast. Amount of merit we create, so it's immeasurable. The amount of negative karma we purify, it's also immeasurable. And then the ripening result of generating these attitudes is, incredibly powerful in the future. I think in that article, Lama Zopa Rinpoche says we create, each time we generate one of these attitudes, we create the karma to be reborn as a wheel-turning king multiple times. So for all those reasons, they're called immeasurable attitudes. Immeasurable compassion. How wonderful it would be for all sentient beings to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they be free from such causes and blessings to be able to do this. And then finally, immeasurable joy. It's usually called, oh, my internet connection is misbehaving again. I'll stop my video again for a bit. Oh, so, immeasurable joy. How wonderful it would be for all sentient beings to never be separated from the happiness which is totally beyond suffering. May they never be separated from this. I myself will cause them to be never separated from this. Please grant my blessings to be able to do this. So we often use this prayer as a motivation. Okay. Jan, you have a question?
I just
see your
wondered
hand
if you could, I just wondered if you could put this in an email link so we can print it and have it available.
Yes. I was trying to, I think, maybe, whereas I was trying to put a link in the chat so you can have it available right now. But I think maybe because I have the document open on my computer, I can't paste it. But yes, we'll send it out by email. Yeah, there's a few other really good things in this document too that be good resources for you. Okay, so we don't have much time and I want to leave some time for questions. So let's just focus on this third verse here. Immeasurable compassion. So here we'll just try to generate the attitude of, well, actually, let's not do that one. Let's do immeasurable love instead, because it's even more straightforward and simple. Compassion, you have to think of the suffering of beings first, which can get into a lot of different things. Love, you just wish them to have every happiness. It's a little bit more simple. So, okay. So get comfortable in your meditation posture again. If you've slipped out of it, or if you're getting a little stagnant, sitting the way you are. Okay, so let's now try to visualize yourself surrounded by all sentient beings. I hope I've done this before, either with me or Venerable Namjong, I don't remember. But typically, yeah, we can visualize our mother of this life, our mother seated immediately at our left, and then all our female friends and family seated to our left and behind us. And then our father of this life seated immediately at our right, and all of our male friends and family seated to our right behind us. And then briefly visualize people whom you're most prone to become angry or upset with, or to dislike and be biased against. So antagonists seated directly in front of you, a few meters distant, facing towards you. Not in a very overbearing, dominant way, but just kind of there to remind you to be careful how you relate to them. And then all other sentient beings, animals, human beings, and other kinds of sentient beings, imagine them all in human form seated all around you. So now we'll start with, it's good actually when we're doing these to start with oneself. Well, yeah, why don't we do that first? So here what we do is we just try to generate love and kindness, right? So why don't we start with ourselves? So direct your attention towards yourself and just try to generate the intention sincerely. May I be well and may I be happy in all the different forms that that might take, right? So here, remember, in analytical meditation, it's not so narrow. You can be free as long as you stay within, thoughts that are related to that intention and generating that attitude. May I be well, may I be happy, what that might mean for yourself, then it's okay to let your mind sort of wander around and think about things that are related to that, but make sure they're reinforcing here the generation of this attitude. May I be well and may I be happy. So take about a minute, just try to generate that attitude towards yourself. May I be well, may I be happy. And you can repeat the words to yourself if it helps. Okay, and now focus on another person. Maybe it's good to focusing on one other person to begin with, and maybe try to challenge yourself a little bit. So maybe focus on one friend or family member whom it's not completely easy to generate affection, loving kindness for, um, but yeah, but also not impossible. So yeah, pick one other person. Yeah, not the easiest person it is to generate loving kindness for, but someone who's a little bit more difficult, and try to generate the same intention towards them. May they be well, and may they be happy. And again, it's also okay to think a little bit about, what will bring well-being and happiness to this person. What form would that take for them? Okay, and now we'll jump to this immeasurable attitude, immeasurable love. So I'll read the verse just once. You can read along. Don't have to read out loud, but just be mindful of the meaning of the words. And then we'll try to at least generate the attitude described in the first line. And can, try to generate, the attitude described in the second, or third, or fourth lines. So how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings, for all sentient beings, how wonderful it would be for all sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have happiness and those causes. I myself will cause them to have these. Please grant me blessings to be able to do this. So you can read it again by yourself if you need to, but try to generate at least the attitudes described in the first one or two lines for the next, say, 2 minutes. Okay, let's pause there. See if my Wi-Fi's. So, yeah, we're out of time again. Planning to do a lot more once again, but do you have any questions? No? Jan, again?
I'm wondering, oh, that was my hand from the last time, but I did have another question. In the beginning, you said females all on one side and males on the other. Is there a particular purpose for that segregation, or was it just the times that it started in?
Yeah, I thought I explained this last session to you all, but maybe it was to a different group. Generally, yeah, when we look at our own body, human body, the left side is always associated with the yin, or the female aspect,
Okay.
and the right side is associated with the male aspect, because I mean, ordinary person is right-handed, right? So generally, we're more active with our right hand, doing different tasks with our right hand. So it's, I mean, and this kind of, I'm not sure I've seen this explanation, but this is how it makes sense to me. So you divide there's a correlation with several different things. So we can divide the whole Buddhist path into the wisdom side and the method side, right? So the wisdom side is the understanding of everything being empty of inherent existence, right? So it's very much like, it's kind of like space, like everything. If there was no space, there could also be no form to occupy that space. Like if there was no darkness, there couldn't be light to illuminate darkness. So just like in like Taoist or Chinese kind of cosmology, the yin is associated with the space, emptiness, voidness, and darkness. Yang is and sort of inaction, which makes possible action. The yang is associated with active, bright, the fullness. So in the Buddhist path, the wisdom side is like, well, it's what we need to mainly understand about things, their emptiness of inherent existence. But it's the ultimate nature of things, which makes everything else possible. So that's associated with the female, and that's associated with the left side of the body. Whereas the more active, all the other aspects of the path, like pure morality, generosity, compassion, loving kindness, are all more active things that are done within that sphere of emptiness. And they're associated with the male and associated with the right side of the body. So that's why we divide up in our visualization like that, with our mother and all our female friends and family to our left, and our father and all our male friends and family to the right.
Okay, thank you.
Did you all, I mean, when you're meditating on loving kindness here, could you feel something change in your mind as you start to try to generate that attitude towards yourself and then other people? No? Yeah, yeah, okay. Some of you, yes. Are there any yeses? Someone, no. Some, yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's not it's not like one's right, one's wrong. Just have to look and see how it is. Yeah, if you didn't, what are some tips to try to, well, okay, one thing to try if you didn't see something change in your mind is to try to think, is there anyone in your life who you think about and when you think about them, you naturally feel affection for that person, right? So try to start with, because we all naturally have affection and a sense of someone that we think of, that we really just naturally care about them a lot. And so when we think about them, we naturally feel, yes, I really want the best for this person. For a parent, often it'd be their children, for sure, or maybe a brother or a sister or a close friend. So, start with the naturally arising instance of really caring about and wishing the best for someone, wishing, the naturally arising, oh, I wish this person, to be well and to be happy. And then try to take that same attitude and then transplant it to another object. It's good to start with yourself, actually. transplant that, try to see if you can generate that same attitude towards oneself. And then, another friend that maybe you feel is a little bit more difficult to generate. And it does feel a little contrived at first, but it's good to start with a skeptical mind. Is this possible even? To intentionally generate an attitude of, affection and love and caring towards another person that it doesn't naturally arise from, because it's not something we typically try to do. Either we really feel that way towards a person, in an ordinary context, or we don't. And if we don't, okay, it's no big deal. If we do, that's great. It's not something we ordinarily try to kind of manufacture in our mind. So it can feel a little contrived at first, but we can start with the question, is this really possible? But to see that, we have to try to do it, right? And then try to do it, not just once, but several times, and see if there is any actual shift in our mind. I mean, I guarantee you can do it. It is possible to generate these kind of positive attitude, but it definitely takes a little practice at first.
I have a question, and I think
Please.
it kind of attaches to what you were just saying. But in the outline for tonight, they're talking about obstacles and antidotes in meditation. And so let's say I selected for a happiness or any of the four immeasurables, somebody who annoys me. And it's a family member that I love very much.
Hold on.
But
Are you going to ask if they're an obstacle?
no, they're not an obstacle, but my thoughts, my mixed feelings about them are filled with obstacles of attachment, how they should be and everything. So, and it says that the antidote for that is pragmatism. Can you give kind of an example of how you would go about that? Maybe what was what you just said, like, is it possible? And, what would it look like? And things like that. But thanks.
Yeah, in the outline, the kind of obstacles and antidotes we're talking about is something much more narrow. Actually, it's more basically when we're doing meditation, we can either lean too much towards being our mind being too sunken down, like if we're tired or lethargic, we lean towards falling asleep and the mind being very unclear, and we need to brighten up the mind. Whereas there can also be on the opposite side, our mind is too lifted up and too excited, and we're prone to become, think about other things unrelated. So we need to kind of bring the mind down, calm down a little bit. In the context of this specific generating good focus of attention, we're more talking about that. But you're right. I mean, when we're generating, trying to generate loving kindness, then there are certain people, there might be certain things we just don't like about them, or certain people we just don't like, at all. And then, and it's not the person that's an obstacle, it's our attitude towards them. Those can be different things that prevent us from really generating deeper and sincere, wish for their well-being. Like maybe we remember something that they did to us in the past that just was really hurtful or upsetting. But then there's other kinds of antidotes for those sort of instances, which, it gets into a much longer conversation than we have time for here, but we'll get in. I mean, those are the kind of things we'll work through, like anger. There's a whole set of antidotes to anger from many, many different perspectives, or low self-esteem, like some of the things you learned about in the last module about the natural purity of the mind, the potential for full enlightenment that we all have, are really good antidotes for like low self-esteem. And attachment, to people, thinking about suffering, the suffering nature of different things can be is a very good antidote for attachment. Also thinking about the fact of death, that eventually we're separated from all those people when they die or we die, can help with attachment. So there's many, many different antidotes. And that's one of the the really, really good things about analytical meditation and learning to use analytical meditation is you learn to use all different kinds of ways of thinking about things in different ways from different angles to deal with any of the different disturbing emotions that arise, but it takes time. Like I think you asked a question, I think it was last session, about study, contemplation, and meditation, and the way Geshe Jampa Tesho explained it in that article. So, just like you can see in this little meditation we did on loving kindness, we use one verse, and then we use that verse to reflect on the meaning and then try to generate a certain attitude. So that's, but there's also, other articles or books where they describe more in depth how to meditate on loving kindness, for example. So when we're doing especially analytical meditation, is part of a process of learning. So the more we study and learn about whatever we want to meditate on, the more resources we have to draw on in our own contemplation. And then the more powerful it becomes. So, so talking about how to deal with our attitudes towards, some people we might have a lot of attachment for, might have some aversion for. We need to learn more about the attitudes of aversion and what's going on, and then check and see if that's true of our own emotional process, and then how to deal with that. There's all different kinds of things. So, yeah, that's what we'll learn. We'll discuss and practice and learn more about that as part of this whole course.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, we should stop there. And it's the end of our time. So let's. But so the homework is try to do some meditation with those 4 immeasurable thoughts. So we'll try to email those out quickly, and then you can use those. If you also just do search like FPMT space 4 immeasurable thoughts, you'll find a lot of stuff on those. Also, you might want to read more about them. But then, yeah, if you could try to, so just like we did today, every time you meditate during the week, spend some time on the posture, and then some time on doing some breathing meditation to focus your attention, and generate. We left out the motivation today, but you could generate a positive motivation, or just jump straight into the 4 immeasurables, because that is a very good way to generate positive motivation. And then meditate on 1 or more of those 4 immeasurable thoughts. Okay, so let's think. Rejoice in whatever merit we've created together today during this session. How excellent it is. And then think of all the other good things that other people do. Ordinary beings like ourselves, parents, teachers, doctors, nurses, neighbors, so forth, friends. All the virtuous things people do, and rejoice. And then think of all the virtue created by countless spiritual masters in the past, from Shakyamuni Buddha on down to His Holiness the Dalai Lama and countless others. Can rejoice in all the merit they've created, all the ways they've benefited sentient beings. So by this great store of merit, then we dedicate spiritual teachings that are beneficial to sentient beings flourish in the minds of sentient beings. May all sentient beings be free from every form of suffering and the cause of suffering. And may all sentient beings, without excluding any, have every form of well-being and happiness, and the causes of those. May all of our own actions only bring benefit to ourselves and to others, and not cause the slightest harm. And then think of any other intentions you'd like us to pray for, to bring those to mind. So may all those your intentions also be fulfilled in accordance with your wishes. And then also may the Dharma Center, Ocean of Compassion, which is hosting this teaching, and the other Dharma centers hosting this teaching, may they all continue to flourish and grow and receive all the necessary support for all of their activities to succeed. Okay, thank you all very much. Have a good week.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Venerable. Be well,
Thank you,
everyone.
Venerable. Thank you, Ruth.